All right. Oh, thanks, Ed. Great to see you today. All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. On this Saturday evening, so Andy raised his hand. I think you're just making a joke so that I can feel comfortable. All right. So thank you everyone for joining today. I've just asked everyone just to pop it in the chat where we are logging in from. So just to please do feel free to just pop in where you are tuning in from today. So hello everyone, I'm Eunjung. I'm organizing this summit and you are not alone for you to raise mental health awareness and to prevent suicide. And today we have Andy to talk about resilience and well-being. Let's just have a chat a little bit. Okay, so we got Milton Keynes, hello, Havering, Peterborough, everywhere from Oh, thank you, Aisha. Nice to meet you, everyone. So everyone's muted and your screen is off. Jerusalem, hello. Andy, you've gone global. Told you.
Wow.
I know, brilliant. Oh, thank you, everyone. So everyone's screens off and you are all muted. So please don't worry about being recorded or anything like that. Just to sit or lie down comfortably and just to tune in to Andy today. So I'll just explain a little bit about our beautiful, great, wonderful speaker, Andy. How I met Andy, I met him through the training sessions he delivered for Citizens Advice. Andy was talking about team resilience and change and uncertainty and how to manage your team through that. I loved his training and we all did, to be honest. And I asked Andy after the training if he would be happy to speak to open up this summit for us on Saturday, 7 p.m. And he kindly accepted. So there we go. Andy, hello. Please.
Hello there. So are you ready for me?
Yes, please just introduce yourself a little bit further. Just tell us, what you do, where you live and stuff for us.
Brilliant. Well, I'll tell you what, let me share my screen and we can kick off. So, yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for trusting me to open your event. I was absolutely honored and a little bit overwhelmed. But then I asked, okay, so when is the event? And you said Saturday at 7 o'clock. So Saturday at 7 o'clock, I'm up against Anton Deck and I'm up against Danny Dyer shouting at a wall. But, people have joined. So the alternative must have been awful. But yeah, thank you anyway, John, for inviting me. Really appreciate that. So quick introduction. As you can see there, that's me in the real world delivering real training. And I've got a shirt on, which means that I must have been out in the real world rather than sat in my house. So as you can see, very good looking male, good hair, although my hair today I think is even better and higher, which is cool. I own a company called 1 Degree Difference, and that started about 5 years ago. I used to work for a company called Pertemps People Development Group, and I had the best job title in the world. I was the staff training and development manager, which as an acronym was wonderful because staff. I was the STD manager for about 7 years. And then eventually got promoted because they didn't know what else to do with me to people development director. And then a new company came along and I didn't really fancy it. So I aggressively negotiated a package so they could get rid of me. And I started up a business called 1 Degree Difference, which is another brilliant acronym because it spells out odd, which sort of works for me. But I sort of deliver 3 sets of programs. So I do lots of stuff around leadership and management. I do lots of stuff about coaching, mindset, culture, teams, that type of stuff, team cohesion. And then I'll do stuff around employability, which is my background really. So that sort of gives you an idea of what I do. you can get hold of me through any of those methods there, like email address and what have you, and I'll put those back up at the end of the session. But I'm ready to go. And John, are you ready for me to kick right off? Fantastic. Well, look, I think we've got to address the elephant in the room. I am a man. I cannot escape that, and you cannot escape it either. And without sort of knowing it, because in my head I'm still like 19, 21, 22, I became old, and that happened without me sort of realizing. And I think we can't escape who I am. So I have to bring me to the conversation. So although the models we're going to look at are applicable to anyone, absolutely anyone, I think I can't come at it from any other angle than my own lived experience. And as Unjan said, we met through Citizens Advice, and I have to be on my bestest behavior with Citizens Advice. But as it's Saturday night, you know, I can perhaps be a little bit more open. You might even get a Boris Johnson impression tonight. Who knows? Let's see what happens. But like, big disclaimer, right? The big disclaimer. As I said, Unjan said, like, can you come and open this event, which was so humbling. But it's a Saturday night, and it's a big, heavy subject, well-being and mental health and resilience. So I promise to make it Saturday night friendly. I am not Anton Deck, thank goodness, and I am certainly not Danny Dyer, although I have shouted at walls like Danny Dyer has done. So I suppose we've got that in common. And for those of you that are tuning in from all over the world, I saw we had, was I right in saying that we had Jerusalem? That is cool. That is cool. So if you are struggling, my accent is I'm from Birmingham, but I'm also a little bit from the Black Country, which is like next door to Birmingham. But my accents are mixed up between those areas. So if you are struggling, tough, I cannot change it, right? And I don't think we're doing subtitles either. So just live with it. But anyway, second big disclaimer really for you is that you can't talk about resilience and well-being without acknowledging 12 months, the last 12 months really, because COVID has totally rewritten how people view resilience and how we view well-being. And it is almost 12 months to the day when Boris, here it comes, when Boris said, don't go to work, go to work, don't go on the bus, stay at home. If you can stay at home, work at home. So we can't sort of get over the fact that we've had 12 months where our resilience has been challenged in a way that nobody expected. So we've got to acknowledge that the COVID has changed everything. See, when I deliver change management, which I've done an awful lot of over the last 12 months, nobody wrote change management models with COVID in mind and pandemics in mind and lockdown in mind. And really, for all the brilliant work that had gone into researching resilience and well-being, again, nobody had really done it with a pandemic and a lockdown in mind. So although all the models are great, they've had to be sort of meddled with to fit what we've got now. And I think that's really important to sort of have in our minds when we talk about resilience. And I think also we can all appreciate why we've been locked down, right? We can all appreciate it. But there's a big old explosion of mental health. It's there now, and it's coming along. It's coming along, and people are affected by being isolated. There was already a huge problem with loneliness, and let's face it. You know, I'm not going to sort of settle a Saturday night conversation on heavy subjects, but there was already big problems around one of the the reasons for the summit around suicide and suicide in men as well. And you look at that and that being a big issue. And really, if it's not there now, it's certainly coming, and the numbers will only grow. And I think what else is really important for us to sort of acknowledge is that our self-esteem is often linked to our jobs. So if you have been furloughed, or if you have been made redundant, that's only going to test your resilience and your well-being further. So we've got furlough, and the one great thing that the government has done is get the jabs, right, and we can't argue against that. And almost half the adult population has been inoculated. Fantastic, fantastic. And hopefully, all fingers crossed, we're going to be allowed back out very soon. And if those furlough jobs don't continue, more jobs are going to be lost, and that's going to create even more stress. And we can't talk about resilience without talking about stress. So I think at this point, it's really interesting to just look at a relativity. And what I've got there is the ocean. And we're all on the same ocean, but we're not all in the same boat, right? So I was talking with a really good friend of mine, my oldest friend, and he's moved to Ireland, and he married a wonderful person over there. She's lovely. And we were talking about guilt, perhaps guilt at surviving and not being affected by lockdown and doing all right in our jobs. And we're both self-employed, both sort of dropped out of mainstream. And we've done okay. And we both said, sometimes, you feel guilty when you look at how tough other people have had it. And that's absolutely right. But he also said something really interesting, that he said, but that doesn't stop me having a bad day. And at first, I didn't acknowledge it or didn't want to acknowledge it. But you know what? I've had some tough days. And I think that's really important, that even though other people have had it tough, just because you might live in a nice house or you've got, a job or whatever, it doesn't mean that your resilience hasn't been tested or your well-being hasn't been tested through this time. I think, again, this is where I've got to sort of acknowledge my age and what have you. And the fact is, now I've got a really nice middle class sort of lifestyle, but I was working class and fiercely so as a kid. So when I see people in mansions moaning that they're having a hard time, the first thing I want to do is get over yourself. Well, who are you to have a tough time? But you know what? Resilience and mental health are no respecter of how much money you've got in the bank. So I think that's worth noting, really. I think the other big disclaimer here is that not every technique that I cover tonight or that I talk about tonight is going to resonate or hit with you. And I think what you've really got to do is what works for you. So if you are doing something that keeps you on the straight and narrow, or keeps you afloat, or keeps you well, then I think you got to keep doing it. And if I talk about a model that you go, that sounds awful and it's not going to work for me, then don't break your stride to try something that works for someone else or works for me. You got to do what works for you. You stay in your lane. And if something that that works, that sounds okay. Yeah, do try. But if there's something that I talk about that makes you feel queasy, then don't be daft enough to try it. Do what works for you. I think the other thing, and I've alluded to it now twice, and if anyone's noticed, I've sort of power dressing tonight. I've come as Captain Kirk. But use the words that work for you. So I've alluded to it a couple of times. I got old, right? And I didn't realize my friends are older. I've got like one friend who's a bit younger than me in his 40s, right? Stu, and he's like a cool version of me. He's wonderful. But other than that, all my friends are like either my age or older. And you know what? I don't want to sound really old, but my generation, man, I've just sounded old, but my generation, we never use terms like mental health. We don't use terms like that at all, or stress or resilience. We don't do it. We don't do it. And mental health as terminology is not part of our vocabulary. And there's no reason why it shouldn't. It's just that we were not brought up that way. So when I talk to my friends, and I'm going to talk about how we've stayed connected, you got to listen out. You got to listen out for the words that resonate for those. So when I get together with my friends, and tonight we will join, as we always do, my virtual pub, which is free and easy. And we listen to each other, right? And the words that we use, stuff like, I've had a tough one this week, struggled this week, been hard this week, not so good this week, fell off a cliff this week. Hearing those words is our attempt at talking about mental health. And we're all blokey blokes, right? And you know what? That's okay. And it's okay for us to talk like that. And by being together, being connected, and being able to talk about, I had a tough one this week, and then do something stupid and laugh at each other and get over it together has been really important. But you've got to use the words that land for you. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with the term mental health, but if you're much more happy going, struggled today, that's fine. That's fine. And I'm going to do that tonight, really. I think the other thing is, just because you're all right at the beginning of the day, we're going to look at a model about this water tank of resilience, and stress and kicks and knocks drop your level of resilience through the day. So, you know, a bit of news. So if we go back before Christmas in the UK, we all thought, oh, you know, we're going to have 5 days off. The virus ain't going to get us. And the virus, of course, don't work like that. And suddenly it mutated, and suddenly things change. So if I go back to my change models, you know, all change models are linear, and we've got this bell curve, and we're coming out the other end, and suddenly, you know, Chris Whitty turns up and goes, oh, no, we can't go out. There's a bloody terrible virus. It's got worse. And suddenly, you know, things have changed. Things have changed. So not only on a wide scale, but on a day-to-day basis. And we got to acknowledge that they change. So for me, the big question is, and this is what you have to ask yourself, is what you are doing helping, or is it hindering, right? So if it's hindering, you got to sort of ask, is this something that I need or want to continue with, right? And I'm not just talking about eating too much cake, right? Although that's part of it, right? So the big statement, do what works for you. Now, again, right, this might be controversial, and some of you might not like this, and these are all, if you're across the world, right, some of these faces might not be familiar to you, but I'll start with this fella here. This is Ant Middleton, right? And at the beginning of the pandemic, Ant Middleton, to be honest, Boris was saying it as well, but Ant Middleton did this little video, and he said basically he was too hard to catch COVID. He was too tough, right? Now, the virus doesn't work like that. And then he had to come on and say, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. Well, you did. That's exactly what you meant. And the worry for me is that if you take what he says, he's too hard to get this virus. He's too hard to struggle, right? Well, what does that mean? If you do get it, you ain't as hard as him. Or if you do get it, you're perhaps not as mentally tough. Well, resilience and well-being don't work like that. And the virus certainly don't work like that. And then, you know, over here, and I'm very aware we've got like this international audience. There might only be one, but like, I'm going to play on it for all it's worth. You know, well-being and resilience are like a 10-minute feature on Schofield in the morning, right? And it all loose women, and it don't talk to me. I can't connect with it. I struggle to connect with it, right? I just don't buy. And then the latest celeb, and they might have started from a really good place, and I ain't knocking them, right? Fern, brilliant, starts from a great place, but then it feels to me like I'm being sold a product. Buy this herbal tea, buy my book. I don't want to buy your book. It don't speak to me. I don't want to buy it. I'm waiting for the inevitable Greg Wallace documentary on well-being, right? The bloke's skill set is gurning and eating food horrible off a spoon. I don't want to buy into that. I ain't never going to buy into it. Piers Morgan, right? Eventually, he'll do a documentary, right? How his well-being has been challenged because he's punched off the telly, right? Pranced off. I ain't going to buy it. So really, I've found a lot of stuff around well-being and resilience, unhelpful noise, and like it's me. It ain't them. It's me. But it plays into that. Do what works for you. Go to the source that works for you. And if Jermaine Jennings ain't working, then go and find someone else. But you got to find authenticity. And that's where I sometimes struggle with some of the stuff that I hear and see. I don't want to buy your book. I don't want to buy your book. What did speak to me, and I thought this was really interesting, these two old fellas, and one's Bob Mortimer, Paul Whitehouse, they go fishing, and it's wonderful. And really, it sort of struck me when I was with my friends, and they were talking about, fell off a cliff this week. These guys who went, basically Bob Mortimer had a heart bypass and he got stuck at home and he didn't want to go out. And his friend Paul White said, come fishing with me. And their little TV show about fishing talked about mortality, and it talked about life, and it talked about confronting stuff. That spoke to me. That works for me. Might not work for you. Find what works for you. So let's shoot on. So I think this is quite important, right? In terms of understanding what resilience is, right? I think I'm going to try his name, and I try so hard to get names right? George Bonanno. I'm probably getting it wrong, right? But he talks about like a sort of a given definition, right? Is that people normally is a subjective term, but basically says people function in adversity and they sort of carry on, right? They're able to carry on in times of adversity. What's happened since, though, right, is I think we'd all probably agree looking at the news, and although New Zealand's a totally different country to the UK, and it's unique, really, they seem to have done the best. And you can sort of say that, well, there's a woman in charge down there, and that might have something to do with it. But Lucy Hone is this fellow at this big university, big institute, wellbeing and resilience down there. She had a terrible incident in her life. She lost a child. And she said, when we talk about resilience in terms of bouncing back from tough times, she not so sure, because she says, perhaps that sort of language is crass and it doesn't work and you can't just bounce back. But, and I think resilience and well-being sits somewhere in the two, but I'll tell you what it isn't. I'll tell you what it isn't. It's the language and the English. This is helpful and unhelpful language, but the British are tough for this. We soldier on, tough enough, tough and man it out, right? And Boris was at the very beginning of the, give someone a handshake, soldier through, squeeze the disease, all that type of stuff. That ain't resilience. Sometimes even the toughest physical specimen might fall over with a load of tough times happening. So it ain't about soldiering on. It really ain't. So I'm going to give you a quick technique, and I'll check out. I'm doing all right for time, almost. I'm doing all right for time. But basically, this is a lovely little technique. And for those of you who have seen me before, and I think I've seen a few names pop up, especially for people who've seen me do employability stuff. And I talk about this in terms of, I used to use it for confidence or effectiveness or what have you. But the little model is out of 10. So again, you use the word resilience, whatever it is that works for you, and you go, right, the question is, out of 10, how are you feeling? And again, you can do this with each other. I do it for myself, right? I know when I'm on my form, and I will go, right, out of 10, how good am I today? How resilient am I today? How tough am I feeling? The language is yours to choose. Where you go, out of 10, and you must write it down. You must write it down because it forces you to confront it. So if you're down at a 3 or a 4, by writing it down, you confront the fact that you are not where you need to be. And then the beauty of this is the model is unique to you. So I would suggest if you're 5 and below, what does that number? It might be, do you know what? I'm feeling a bit lonely today. I ain't talked to him. I've got a friend, and it really struck me. And I've got to think about not leaving people behind, right? It's the Star Trek in me thing, right? But he said to me the other week, he said, his name's Michael, and he said, do you know what? We do a quiz, and he said, this quiz, first time I've spoke to anyone this week, other than the fella who dropped the Asda shopping off. Wow, that's tough going, isn't it? And it's like, so when he talks about feeling lonely, that's what that number means to him, right? For me, it might be that I'm crowded in my house. I just want some me time, right? So what does that number mean to you? And a little takeaway activity is the one thing you can take away tonight that will boost how you feel, right? What's the one thing you can do that's in your control? Whether it's to text a friend, whether it's to ring someone you ain't spoke to in a while, whatever it is, but that choice, that sits with you. That sits with you. So I think that's a lovely little model for you. I can see we've got chat stuff coming in. Hopefully it's not that I froze or anything like that, right? Or people are not getting my accent. But we're going to take questions at the end. I can see like the chat's like we've gone from 4 to 17. Unjan, are we okay? Give me the thumbs up, right? Okay. So very quick. I had one sleepless night at the beginning of lockdown. This fella is George Osborne. And he said, and it was terrible. 11:15, I saw this fella come on. He's the ex-chancellor of the Exchequer. He loves austerity. And someone asked him a question. He said, how are we going to pay for this, George? And he says, I think austerity is right. We should get, people should pay. What he was meaning was working class and middle class people pay. And I went to bed on that and I couldn't sleep, right? And this, I thought, there's something in this. There's about control, right? And it sort of struck me. I'm going to shoot past the ballad of Ian, the miserable person, because it's another story too long. But I had this terrible sleepless night, and all night I'm thinking, austerity, I'm going to have to pay. What about Alan Sugar? Shouldn't Alan Sugar be putting his hand in his pocket? What about that turning Jacob Rees-Mogg? Why ain't he paying on it? All night I had this going through my head. A couple of weeks later, almost happened to me again, and it was the night Dominic Cummings' story broke, right? And he pranced off up the road, right, with his eyesight. And this come on Twitter, right? Dominic Cummings, and I'm reading it Friday night, like, whoa. And then the news comes on, and it's like BBC News, tsunami of job losses. Friday night, 11:15, I'm, oh no, I can't have this, right? This is terrible. So I made a choice and I turned it off and I chose happy. And if you want to do anything about resilience, choose your happy. I've put cheers on there. I alluded to it earlier. Me and some quite a wide range. We've got this free and easy pub idea over Zoom, and we've created a little community for ourselves. Every time we do this on a Saturday night, the people don't know this. Before they come on, I play the theme tune to Cheers. It's a place where everyone knows my name, and I don't have to be anything other than the buffoon who they talk to. I've found the canal, round by my house. I walk the canal every day. I walk miles on this canal. There's a lovely community. They're all lovely, apart from the pigeons who live under the bridge, who I've got a very testy relationship with. But other than that, this canal is wonderful. The playlist that you choose is so important. Choose your happy. So that night, 11:15, I couldn't take no more of Dominic Cummings off. I couldn't take the news off, and I chose my happy, and I didn't have problems sleeping. You have more control over what you take in than you realize. Don't be passive. So for me, I can't listen to scientists after 9 o'clock, right? Scientists and technology will get us out of the pandemic, right? But the arts will get us through it. So after 10 o'clock, I just want to listen to Nora Jones. I don't want to listen to Chris Whitty. He's what a wonderful man, but he's like Professor Gloom, and he and like 11:15. I'll talk to you in the morning, Chris, right? I'll listen to you in the morning. But tonight, I can't listen to pessimism and caution. And that's his job. And it ain't on him, it's on me. It's up to me when I take that information in. Going to get to this, and I know that we haven't got too much long, so I'm going to run through this little model for you. But what I want you to think about is resilience in terms of a water tank that sits in your chest, right? Strange idea. A friend of mine, Richard Armisen, gave me this idea. But he basically said, your water tank is your resilience is a full water tank. And through the day, the little stresses, glug, 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 glug. And through the week, glug, 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 glug. And it takes you, so you get out of bed late, Zoom don't work, right? Bump, 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 all the way down, right? You look at your own, you think, oh my God, everything, glug, 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 right? And that's what happens. That's how stress and affects resilience, sort of thing. And what happens there is stress, really, we're not evolved for this constant level of stress. We're evolved to deal with the problem and move on, right? That's how it works. So this whole idea of being under constant stress and uncertainty for what's now 12 months, not really built for that. In fact, if I was doing change models, we've been stuck in uncertainty, right? The lowest point of productivity for 12 months. That's stressful for the body. And it's a different type of tiredness as well, right? It's a different type of tiredness that we're facing, a different type of burnout. So stress and motivation work together, by the way. All of my training, all of my work was face to face. I could see, as many people could, lockdown coming 3 weeks before Boris said, don't go to work, all that stuff, right? So it motivated me to change, because if I hadn't have changed, my business would have been gone. So it motivated me to become an online business. And I've won beautiful contracts. You know, I choose who I work with. Citizens Advice, for a little fella on his own to work with Citizens Advice is a big deal, let me tell you. So that would not have happened if I hadn't been motivated through the worry, right? So a little bit of stress, a little bit of worry is good. It ain't all bad. But the stress that we feel, as I said before, you have the choice about when you take bad news in, right? So that stress when you're tired, choose not to. Choose when you take that in. So how do we top up that water tank? Well, in normal times, it's the fun stuff. So I used to sit in an office with a couple of people. Like I sat with a lady named Eloise for years, right? And it would only, we'd sit together, and a bad day, or she'd have a tough call, and it would be enough for her to go and look at me, and I'd go, and that would be enough to make her laugh. And I go, do you want some cake? I shouldn't really. Do you want some cake? Yeah, cut the biggest piece. And that's how that's low level, topping up the tank. Then the next level is arranging to go for a lunch, or going for a beer, or doing something low level fun, right? Then the next level is a big night out or a sporting event or whatever. Then the next level is a big event like a wedding. And then the top whole, how we regenerate that water tank of resilience. Holiday? Well, guess what, right? Here comes COVID to dance all over our fun stuff, right? You look at it, my graphics fantastic. I am low rent. So with that in mind, if we go back to that first lockdown, people have got Zoom fatigue now, but Zoom and all those meetings, all those family quizzes kept you sane. It connected you, right? That's my worry about this third lockdown. People ain't doing the stuff that worked in lockdown one. But all of those great things, I've created a pub. It ain't my pub, it's everybody's, this virtual pub. And Tiger King dropped at exactly the right moment. For those of you, if you haven't seen it, where have you been? But it's basically, and I'm going to use the term, all these bonkers characters, right? These bonkers characters over in America, they've all got zoos and they've got like these tigers. And this fella here has got a nemesis called Carol Baskin, and she fed her husband to the tigers. It landed at the right minute because it allowed us to connect about something other than the terror and the fear of COVID. So we was all, Carol Baskin's definitely fed her husband to the crocodiles, to the tigers. It was something we could talk about other than bloody lockdown. And I think that's why you've seen such an uptake in nostalgia TV. So people have rewatched stuff like Life on Mars or Courage or whatever your favorite stuff is. It was a way of you being safe and warm. And I've rewatched loads of stuff. Choose the happy. So, if you've had a Netflix day and you've chose to watch something old instead of something new, I think it was about, sitting in something that felt good. And that's fine. So the question really about this water tanker resilience really, for me, is what are you doing, right? And you have a level of control, even if you're on your own, and the only person you see is the person who brings the Asda shopping round, right? It's on you as well. You can ring a friend. You can choose what to watch. You can choose when to watch it. You can choose to go for a walk. And I know the weather's been tough, but I've done more coaching with people over these 12 months. I've got loads of coaching work. And I've really struggled this last lockdown because I ain't been able to go for a walk because I've been that busy. Nature abhors a vacuum and managers abhor space in your diary. But we've been working longer hours. It's no good for you. So book that 45 minutes lunch and go for a walk around the block in the sunshine or the rain, anything to get your step count up. But you choose that. And I think that another takeaway activity for tonight is for you to choose something that will make you feel good. You've got Sunday. Choose to go to a walk, ring a friend. You're allowed to go for a walk with a friend. Do it tomorrow. Ring that person you haven't spoken to for 6 months. They'll be glad of the call. It's never too late. It's never too late. So I'm almost done because it's like I don't breathe either. It's like I've got gills. Excuse me. If you was expecting a beer, give me another hour. So with the this water tank idea, my poor kids, right? They both turned big birthdays during lockdown, 18 and 21, right? And we couldn't do all the things we'd planned. So I got them in the card. We owe you something good. And we make good on that promise. We committed. And I thought there's something in this because they both really liked that idea. One of them's watching tonight and he's invited all his friends from Cambridge. I hope I'm doing a good job from him, right? I didn't go to university, but my offspring went to university. He sort of got the brains and the looks. He's a very, very lucky boy. But he got this IOU idea and he loved it. The kids loved it. So I thought, I'm going to send some of my friends IOUs. And I sent round, I owe you a beer in York, or I owe you a beer in Strandhill, my friend, I'm coming to get you, right? Where as soon as I can, I'm coming. Now, normally when I talk about goal setting, dates are so vital. Deadlines are important because that's what forces our activity. But we've not got the luxury of that. So we've got open commitments. So another one of these little things that you can do is send an IOU, right? And even if you think, oh, I don't like the sound of that, but choose words that work for you, right? Don't sit and moan, or don't like the words you use there. Use words that work for you, but get in touch with someone, connect, right? Connect, because that will work for you. I'm going to run through that because that ain't important, because I think we're going to move, because I see Unjon thinking you've got to shut up and carry on. I'm going to get to my resilience top 10 tips for you, and then I'm going to more or less open it up to questions and answers. And the top 10 are sort of capturing what I've said tonight. So number one, that little model, right? Putting that number down out of 10 and writing it down, because if that number is below 5, seeing it on the page, 3, don't sink into that number 3. Determining it's in your control. What am I going to do to go from a 3 to a 6? How can I feel better? What choices could I make today? And we all have that power. Don't think you haven't. This is an interesting one. Accept that thoughts aren't true and feelings aren't facts, right? This is why I don't listen to scientists after 10 o'clock at night, because they get the scientists on and, you know, they say, should we be cautious? Oh, yes, you should be very cautious. You know, don't. And they're doing their job, right? But at 20 to 10, I can't separate the truth from the noise, right? And sometimes I'd go to bed and it's like, you know, and my wife works quite a few nights, so there's just me in the act, right? Ooh, thoughts aren't true and feelings aren't facts, right? Am I putting stuff in the way of me that, right? And another thing, if you think, oh, I couldn't speak to my friend because I haven't spoken to them for 3 months or 6 months, right? That's a perceived obstacle. Get over yourself, make the call, connect, right? Keep talking. This is the thing about, you know, my language isn't about mental health. I never use that term. I probably not, you know, wouldn't use it naturally. But having the opportunity to connect with my friends, and the quizzes, we do a quiz every Wednesday, and that's kept people sane. And it's like, yeah, I've struggled this week. And taking that first jump to say that, you know, and I think the person who first said it on the call, you would not have expected it from him. You wouldn't have expected it. And people, yeah, I've struggled this week. Yeah, I'm so good. Right, we're going to do this when we get out. And then we started laughing, and that was healthy. Again, the control. I think I've mentioned this more than anything else. I realize that light behind me looks like I'm some sort of messenger from above, and I am. But look for what you can control here and let go of what you can't. Twitter is a bad place sometimes. Don't be scrolling. If you've seen the social dilemma, is it? We are programmed to scroll, and we will scroll to stuff that's not good for us sometimes. So perhaps make the choice of what you watch and when. Do something that makes you feel good. So that whole thing, my walk along the canal, I adore that. And when my wife says, "Shall I come with you?" Well, not go on then. Because like, I like that. That's my time, right? I get that. I get a podcast on. But she's all right, like, you know. And apart from the pigeons, the community down there on the canal's wonderful. The pigeons are scum. Don't make friends with the pigeons. Diarize the smallest of good things. The diarising is really important. So put in your diary that you're going to make a call, because it's something to look forward to. And as humans, we need something to look forward to. So when the lockdown gets extended, you know, shift the date or put it in there that you've spoke to someone that you want to. Control your stimulus. Too much booze and cake won't help. But, you know, some days all you want to do is eat cake, and nobody's going to tell you off. Nobody's going to tell you off, right? You're surviving a global pandemic. And I just want to asterisk that, right? Surviving is relative. A lot of people haven't, and a lot of people have done a lot worse. But you've got to look after you. So if you have a day on the cake, right, it's all right. Eat a bit less cake tomorrow and a bit less the next day, but you control that. And then the last 3, those healthy eating options are available. I changed my diet halfway through, not brilliantly, but just a bit, you know, and I felt better for it. Get out and get some exercise. Find a way. And I can't remember what does the last one say? Go to bed, right? Sleep is so important. 7 or 8 hours is massively important. It's to do with memories, to do with regeneration. I could have done a whole 20 minutes on why your dreams are funny at the moment, but we ain't got time. So the last thing for me to say, most importantly, you gotta stay connected. So I've finished my slideshow with like claps in case no one else was going to do it for me. I haven't stopped for a breath, so I'm going to hand over to Unjan, and if there are questions, then let's take some questions. Did I finish on time?
Yay! Yay! No,
Almost.
gone a lot, but I forgive you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we've got lots of comments in the chat, and your talk was great. Thank you so much. We have a question from Ken O'Brien.
Ah,
I survive by just doing what is necessary. Should I do more?
I think to answer that question, I think you have to do what's right for you, no matter what advice other people might be giving you, Ken. So, Ken, if you're the type of person who needs to work and that whole work is set up with our self-esteem, and if that was suddenly taken away, that might not be so healthy. But I think what you got to look at is do what works for you, but don't be taken advantage of. This sounds a little bit like a psychic reading, and it is a little bit. So I think you will know when to put your foot on the brake a little bit, and that time's coming soon, my friend, because you can't carry on the way you are. You madman.
Thank you. And we have another question from Sharon. What about helping the children? It's been really tough on them. Any tips?
Oh, crikey. Well, I think in terms of children, I'll tell you what I would do with this. I think you've got to forgive yourselves. One of the slides I had to run over was that, at the very beginning of the pandemic, you had some helpful, unhelpful advice from people who were already home workers. Their whole, they got it set up. Whereas for most people, in the space of a weekend, they went from being an office worker to go to work from home, and we all became home workers, right? And for some people, you were trying to do your own job, teach the kids, keep the kids safe, right? And kids have got to make sense of this, So I think that whole thing of, I'll tell you this, right? We've got locked into a 9 to 5 world. And what the pandemic's taught us is 9 to 5 isn't the world, right? So if your kids, get them when they can. So if the kids are really interested and their time for learning is between 8 and 10, cram them with info then. And if they have a little bit of a run round after, then that's fine. Focus on the outcome. But what I would do is I would not be beating yourself up. You survived a pandemic. You did your job. You tried your best, and your kids are safe. They'll catch up. Kids are resilient. There's a big thing about resilience. I'm going to just stop all these people clapping a minute. But there's a big thing about resilience. Kids are brilliant for resilience. There's a terrible term, right, about what if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. I don't like the term. It's a horrible term. But in terms of resilience, there's lots of research that shows that kids who go through tough times are better able to deal with resilience later on in life. So they will, they'll be struggling now, but they will adapt. They will adapt. Hopefully that's sort of answered, but go easy on yourself.
Thanks, Andy. We have actually a few questions. So I'll start from the first one from David. Any advice on weird dreams in lockdown? This is a really interesting one. How can you come to terms with them?
Right. Well, weird dreams are, there's two things about weird dreams in lockdown. Number one is your sleep patterns have changed. Our sleep patterns have changed. So if you think about our old world, it was, to quote the Beatles song, get up, get out of bed, drag the comb across your head, ran downstairs, drunk a cup, and off to work sort of thing. We don't sort of wake up like that anymore. And also our sleep is sometimes disruptive. So therefore you dream every 20 minutes or so during sleep, thereabout. So if our sleep's disrupted and we're waking up through the night, we're remembering the dreams that come, the dreams are more vivid. We're awake, we tend to wake up over a longer period of time. So we're not jumping out of bed, it takes us 5 minutes. So our dreams are much more vivid. I think the strangest dream I had beginning of lockdown, I'd swapped my car for a long neck giraffe. No, long neck camel, not a giraffe. It was a long neck camel. And I was trying to get into Birmingham, and I was trying to access a training room with a computer pad. I couldn't get in. Right, so don't take young to work out that I'm worried about travel. I've got to take on all. I had to learn 8 platforms in the first 3 weeks of lockdown. And for a fella who spent all his time teaching on his feet, the only technology I used was to make the computer work, to put it on the screen. So obviously and I was always worried about being late and not being. So the other thing is your dreams are a way of making sense of the world, right? So in English countries, English speaking countries, there's been lots of dreams about invisible monsters. There's been lots of dreams about bugs, insects accessing the house, right? So bugs, superbug, virus, lots of studies over the last 12 months have seen this. Whereas countries that don't use the term bug for virus have had different dreams. So it's what works on. But the whole thing about walking, just to bring you back to walking or exercise, is that's where your higher functions are doing all the good thinking, while your lower functions are making sure you don't fall in the canal. So I do lots of thinking when I'm out walking, which means that I don't have to process it all. I have had some freaky dreams. I have, which I'm not sharing.
Well, shame we don't have the time to listen to your freaky. I'm sure they are super freaky. But so just conscious of time that we've got about 5 minutes or so. We've got 3 questions. First one from Louise. Everyone keeps telling me to get back into exercise and go out for walks, but this lockdown, I feel safer and happier staying at home on my own, not really seeing anyone. I completely agree with that. Should I
Yeah.
listen to them though, as normally I'm a social person?
Well, I think there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to unpack. So there was quite a lot of pressure on people in the first lockdown because it was sunny. It was brilliant weather over in the UK, especially for the first couple of months. So everyone was going out and walking and what have you. This third lockdown has happened during a particularly harsh winter over here with snow and all that type of stuff. So, some people have hibernated, do what works for you. I would say, though, that there's a whole concept, and I ain't got time, about scary dangerous, right? Before, it was, the world was scary and it was dangerous. So we had to take all these measures and wear a mask and, wash our hands all the while. Soon the world will be less dangerous. And for people who have been isolated and lonely, you're going to have to reintegrate with the world. So I think you've got to do what works for you. I would never say to you, because the whole talk has been about do what works for you. I think there's something really healing about being outside. I think there's something really healing about sunlight and stuff like that. But, do what works, baby steps. Find a friend to go for a walk with when you're ready, but make the first step. Make the first step is what I would go with.
Thanks, Andy.
I'm a lunatic, by the way. I'm a maniac. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a doctor. I'd like to be Doctor Who, but, I'm not a doctor. But that would be my advice.
So am I, Andy. I'm a maniac, as you know. So that makes 2 of us. Okay, so we have two questions to go through quickly. From Ed, our managers at work are using a narrative of everyone is suffering and it's very tough. Is there anything you'd advise to help me direct them towards a rhetoric more focused on taking actions around what we have control over?
It's a really difficult question to answer in such a short amount of time, really. I think if language is so important, and when I'm teaching managers, I talked about clarity of language, clarity of outcome, clarity of understanding. Whereas resilience and well-being, you have to use the words that work for you. I think if your language is landing in the negative, you've got to look at a way of turning the language into what you can do as opposed to what you can't. Right? I do think that's important. I don't know if I'm answering your question as well as I could, and I'd like to find out more, really. But I think, yeah, people have had it tough. People have, and like as I said, me and my friend said, oh, we feel a bit guilty that we've done really, relatively well, and we're safe and we're healthy, and our businesses have done well. We didn't expect them to, but that doesn't mean we haven't had bad days. We haven't had bad days, and I think you have to acknowledge that. But you also have to acknowledge, do you know what? It's okay that we're moving on. We've survived. We're going to do okay. You're doing your best. I don't think I've answered the question there, but I'd need to unpack it more, I think. And your last one, I think you've only got one more.
We actually have 2 more, but I'm really sorry. We might not have the time. But I'm really sorry, but I'm just going to quickly go through the Paul and John's question. On observation, what you say is so right. I'm going through a strange time, and your 10 tips are really helpful. Question: do you endeavor to follow these tips yourself the best you can?
Right, that's probably a lovely question for us to finish with. So for the first, I think from March to October, I delivered a lot of resilience training, loads and loads. The most stuff I did was resilience and change management. And I'm talking through the models all the time, right? And if I'm talking through them, I'm living them. So every time I see connect with a friend, I'm going to choose that, or healthy eating options are available. So I used to, so I'm going to have a banana now, because usually I start have a chocolate bourbon. No, I'm going to have a banana. And because I was talking it, I was living it, and what have you. I think from October to November, I had a bit of a tough one. And I thought, I'm not taking my own advice here. I'm not taking my own advice. And I got into the habit of Twitter, and I thought, this has got to stop. So it really was okay. My wife will say I'm the angriest, moaniest fella around, but for me, it's a quick vent. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't like the pigeons. The pigeons ain't done nothing to you. Just let me moan about the pigeons for a second, will you? Just get it out there, right? And then it's gone. Then it's gone for me. So I think I hadn't took my own advice, and then I delivered it again, and I thought, well, I've been a Burke, right? Physician, heal thyself. It's all very good telling other people. You got to follow it through. And I chose the happy again. I chose the happy. So yeah, I do what I suggest.
Thank you very much.
Flying figure.
Thank you very much, Andy. I'm so sorry, Sanky, we've run out of the time, but I'll ask our lovely Andy to maybe have a look at your question and pop his comments on the LinkedIn event page, if that's okay with you. I hope that's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Andy, for opening our summit. You are not alone, Virtual Mental Health Summit on a Saturday night, and I'm doing such a wonderful, wonderful talk. I've really enjoyed it myself, and from the chat, it looks like everyone really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for so just some chats coming through from Helen. Brilliant, lots to take away. Paul and Jen, well done, Andy. So thank you so much everyone for tuning in to Andy's resilience and wellbeing session Saturday evening rather than going for Ant and Dak. So I really enjoyed it. The Andy's slides and the recording will be up on the website and the LinkedIn event page. Please tune in, share your feedback, and share your thoughts on the event page. If you're more private sort of chat, just email me through you're-not-alone-summit@gmail.com any feedback and that you have. So thank you very much everyone for joining us today, and thank you so much for Andy as well. Thank you.
You're absolutely inspirational to pull this together and to get people involved. You've done a wonderful job. You should be really proud. It's okay to be proud.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Happy Saturday. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.